Joining us now to discuss is James Stewart. He's a former FBI agent and NOPD detective. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Yes, we of course are all in mourning over what happened in Texas. It's something though that we're seeing more and more common, and it is ironic. Just Monday, the FBI released some new data on active shootings, saying that we are seeing, I think, 50% more than the year before. It's unbelievable how common these have become.
Unfortunately, they have, and they are a very complicated, and they're protracted investigations. They're very personal because a lot of the officers know a lot of the people involved in those school shootings. It's very personal. It's very horrific, and it takes a long time to do these investigations.
Yeah, and you can only imagine the horrific process for the parents and relatives of these victims. Kind of take us through what an investigation like this even looks like.
Well, once the investigation focuses on the crime scene and the actual, when they determine what they're going to use as a crime scene, it's just a very methodical search of the school. In this case, they're going to be focused on if they were able to keep it they got the school and the grandmother's house, so they've got two different crime scenes that they have to look at. So they're gonna just carve them up, and then detective squads. It looks like DPS, Texas DPS has the lead. FBI evidence response team is probably helping those guys out because they have more manpower they can send over there to help them process the school. And they look for all the physical evidence that occurred. They look at the guy's social media. They look at his cell phone. They'll interview the teachers that knew the kid if they knew him, and they'll also interview the neighbors. They'll do a neighborhood canvass, and then they'll collect all the evidence and process it, and then actually they'll probably present it to the DA's office just to show them what unfolded and how the crime occurred, and then if they were able to determine any type of motive.
Yeah, and you mentioned social media there. Let's talk about how that factors into these investigations now that it's more common. In a case like this, we did see that this gunman allegedly posted on social media guns or other disturbing things before this shooting. Has that made these cases easier to investigate?
It gives you more leads. I don't know if it's any easier to investigate because social media is so wide. It's just so wide. I mean, they'll focus on his accounts and the people he was connected with to see if anybody may have tried to help him or do things that made him maybe somebody else supported what he was doing and make them an accomplice. But it looks like he was just a lone, what they call the lone wolf. He got it. He just wanted to commit a horrific crime. He started with his grandmother, went over to the school, and committed an unimaginable crime.
Yeah, and of course, the big question for everyone after something like this is always why. How do you guys go about figuring out a motive in cases like this? And I know we see a lot of these mass shootings where we never learn a motive, especially where the gunman is killed.
Yeah, once the gunman's killed, trying to determine a motive at that point is going to be a little more difficult because you don't have him you don't have the value of interviewing him and determining what led him to that. And in some cases, the ones that have not, the ones that the police apprehended, they come up with a motive because they do an interview and they figure it out. But in this case, it's going to be very hard to determine a motive other than maybe just a hate, not really a hate crime as much as just he was hell bent on committing a mass crime at the school.
Yeah, and definitely was able to do that. Of course, this is horrific to watch from the outside, but there are some details you read that kind of give you insight on what the families of these victims have to go through. I was reading this morning that some of the bodies were so badly damaged they have to take DNA from the parents to even try to figure out who the victims are.
Yeah, until you've had the occasion to work with children who have been involved in serious crimes, it's hard for me to talk about that. You can't imagine what these parents are going through. And as a detective who's been down that road a few times, it's just unsettling. But you do a job and you try to be there for the parents because at least you can do the autopsies and you can be there to do the identification, and then you try to help the parents out, being a good victim assistant person there, and you just give them a lot of support because they look to you as somebody who's seen their son or daughter, and now you're trying to bring that personal back to them, you know, just trying to comfort them as much as you can and give them what they need to know for their closure. That's just a very tough. I've been in that position more than once, and it's just a tough road to go down.
Sure, and I'm sure there's no comfort for someone who's been through that and lost a child. James, thank you so much for joining us this morning with your insight.
And my pleasure. Thank you. Have a nice day.